Shirish Garud. He is the Director and Senior Fellow at the Energy and Resources Institute, Delhi. He is a well-known renewable energy specialist with over 3 decades of experience in the industry. He is a well-known expert in renewable energy technologies, solar and wind, energy planning, and renewable energy policy studies. Today, Mr. Sirish will discuss India's self-reliance, support to develop hydrogen and solar PV sector. Let's welcome Mr. Sirish.
So I think solar, wind and biomass hydropower, these are the four major renewable energy sectors which will flourish in India in coming future purely because we have huge potential for all of them. And in solar, of course, there are two technologies, solar thermal technology and solar PV technology. So solar thermal for power generation somehow has not picked up in India, mainly for two reasons. One, the technology never gained grounds internationally. Also, it was always under demonstration regime. And secondly, it proved to be expensive and not so successful in Indian climatic conditions, particularly in Rajasthan, where it was supposed to have good potential because of the dust storms and other issues. So solar thermal, although solar thermal has a major advantage that it can store electricity in terms of hot oil, and that can be used during the it can practically run 24 hours. So we are still looking at solar thermal technology in future. Maybe there is some additional schemes or efforts need to be made because of the storage. It can give additional benefits for grid stability, and the storage will be probably cheaper and long lasting compared to lithium ion batteries or grid connected battery storage systems. And of course, it is faster to put up a solar thermal power plant than pump hydro storage station. So there are a few benefits of these technologies. I'll not tell too much on that. The PV technology, as we all know, has a tremendous potential, be it rooftop, be it ground mounted, be it floating solar, be it what we are now experimenting with is the agrovoltaics and canal top. So every area which is exposed to sun at some place, some can be used practically to put solar systems. We did a potential assessment for solar, floating solar, about 100 odd gigawatt. We have, generally earlier assessment of solar potential with the older technology, and 3% of wasteland was 748 gigawatt. But now, if you look at all these new applications and new areas of applications, it can be much, much more. I'll dwell a little bit talk about the agrovoltaics here, because agrovoltaics combines agriculture and photovoltaics in the land. Now, agriculture, as you know, depends on sunlight, but many crops don't need that much sunlight. They can be better off in a lesser quantity of sunlight. And if one has solar modules which are installed at a height, so that land below can be used for cultivating agriculture as it is, then it will give double income to the farmers. And we are now studying this aspect. What kind of business models will be suitable for all, so that win-win situation can come? Because farmers cannot sell the agricultural land to industry as per the regulations and laws. The second thing is agricultural land has to be used for agriculture. So in many states, there is no permission given to put any structure in the agricultural land. So that is going to be one major challenge for these kind of concepts. At the same time, horticulture or the floriculture or even vegetables or some major crops can be grown under the solar PV modules, and it can give a good double income. So one is looking at agriculture land as a resource along with the agriculture, not without agriculture. So there is no question of agriculture, solar or energy versus food, conflict in this case. But that will create huge availability of land. There is also a possibility of using agriculture borders, the land borders, by putting up bifacial solar modules, so that they generate electricity from both sides of the module, and thereby their production capacity can be increased by 20% or so, depending on the conditions, of course. But if they are installed around farmland, on the boundaries of farmland, then that also can be a good source for generating electricity at the same time, using agriculture land. So this is along with floating solar, where one is looking at water bodies and modules mounted on them on a floating structure, and generating electricity. That there is a good potential for these 2-3 concepts, and they are not very expensive. There is a little bit of extra cost, but that is not very high. So that is that can be made competitive, because one is on the other side, one is not using the land specifically for this. So that investment is low. The second aspect which is coming up with the announcement of the hydrogen mission is an important aspect, because hydrogen is now picking up as a alternative for many things. It can be alternative for fossil fuels. It can be like in transport sector, in shipping sector, in aviation also, maybe futuristic, but yes. The second is it is also as a raw material for the industrial processes, where what we call it as a hard to abate sectors, where carbon emission reduction is very difficult. For example, steels industry. So for getting steel from iron ore, one has to do reduction process, and for that carbon is used. And now the companies like JSW, Tata Steel, and many other companies are experimenting with new technologies where hydrogen can be used instead of carbon. So consumption of natural gas or carbon is totally avoided in this case. And one is looking at hydrogen for this industry very soon. The hydrogen is also used as a what we call it as a gray hydrogen, where hydrogen is produced using steam methane reformation process. Steam and natural gas, which is basically methane, are combined and they react together to produce hydrogen. And so hydrogen in that case is called gray because it also produces carbon dioxide in a large quantity, which is greenhouse gas. So the new technologies where directly green hydrogen is produced, like electrolyzer technology using solar PV. So these technologies will come in picture. And as I mentioned earlier, the new technologies like the Swiss technology, while producing hydrogen directly from concentrated solar. So those are coming in market soon, which will change the whole scenario for this technology. Now, apart from this, hydrogen mission has set up good amount of funding, and I believe that funding will get activated in this budget. Some substantial portion of funding will be made available to industries, to research projects, to demonstration projects, to investments. Maybe PLI type of scheme is expected, at least announcement, but nitty-gritties may be worked out a little later. So so government has given almost 19,000 crore for hydrogen mission in the announcement of the mission. And one is looking at a lot of technology development happening in India. And as you all know, already companies like Tata Motors have developed the bus with fuel cell. Railways have already, trying to develop the coaches with fuel cell powered coaches. Then we are looking at, Kerala has announced a big, push for hydrogen because they want to become carbon free by 2040. And for that, they are looking at hydrogen as a major source. particularly for inland navigation, where green ammonia-based ship engines can come, because ammonia is relatively easy to handle compared to hydrogen, and it can be used in ammonia engines for power production or mechanical power or traction production. So hydrogen, one is, and then there are technologies for electrolyzer technologies are being developed in many research institutes. We have about 30 odd institutes which are working in hydrogen sector in India. Some of them are doing basic research for materials, improvement in efficiencies, improvement in material composition, reduction in use of high value materials like platinum, titanium, etc. in electrolyzer electrodes, new technologies like nano material based electrodes, etc. So there is a lot of development happening, and I hope it will come to the market. It will not only remain in the laboratories as research. The current current initiatives of DST, also Department of Science and Technology, which primarily provides funding for research institutes in India, is that industry oriented research should happen. And in case of hydrogen, they are also looking at a mission which is called as a hydrogen valleys. So hydrogen valley is a concept basically popular in Europe, where a particular city or particular geography is developed, where you have hydrogen production, you have hydrogen handling facilities, you have hydrogen storage facilities, and you have hydrogen utilization facilities. So it becomes a concentrated hub for hydrogen related activities. So which creates good capacity building of the people. It creates good infrastructure and job opportunities for local people, and also it takes us towards the energy transition in a state way. Now, the hydrogen valley scheme, DST has announced they are looking at some technology proposals now. Under Mission Innovation, which is another initiative, international initiative, where participating countries are doubling their budget for R&D projects and the R&D projects are collaborative basis. So there also hydrogen-based research, is one of the focus area for future call for proposals. So that is another area where hydrogen related research will happen with international collaborations. So in all, I will say there are a number of areas where one is looking at improving solar PV efficiencies, technologies, local manufacturing, and also in case of hydrogen, local manufacturing and use of hydrogen through policy measures like green hydrogen or green ammonia can be made mandatory to industries which are already using, like refineries, fertilizers, small edible oil units, and so many other chemical companies which are using hydrogen already. So instead of gray, they might have to use, say, 5% or 10% of green hydrogen to start with, and slowly that will keep on increasing. There are challenges of setting up the whole mechanism for this, setting up of certification mechanism for green hydrogen, the safety and other mechanisms. But I think that government will work parallelly on all those aspects, and they will definitely come out with good policy and regulatory infrastructure, regulatory ecosystem for green hydrogen economy. We are also looking at green hydrogen on long-term storage for renewable power, but that might happen little later. But some of these industrial units will come, and long-haul shipping and buses can be there on hydrogen fuel cell, technologies. So I'll say, Varan, so production and utilization of the homegrown technologies is going to be a major, positive we can see in coming future. And by 2030, in another 8 years or so, the hydrogen production is targeted to be 5 million tons per annum, green hydrogen. Currently, our hydrogen industry hydrogen requirement is about 6.5 million tons. So you can see almost 80% of that will be will be generated by the green hydrogen. So that means more or less 70 to 80% of that requirement by 2030 will come from green hydrogen. And our study shows that by 2050, we will need about 28 to 30 million ton of hydrogen total, and most of it will come from green resources. The second aspect is that we are also looking at hydrogen export. I'll just touch upon that, and that is a new market which is emerging. Which countries like Japan, some European countries have set their target to get green hydrogen from outside, because they can't produce on their own. So that is going to be a challenging market for us. Internationally competitive we'll have to be. So I'll stop here, and thank you.
Thank you